All right, thank you so much. Yes. Now, I told you that we're going to be looking at the recent publication that the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics made, talking about the inflation rates in the country. That was actually released on Monday, whereby the rate pegs at 26.72%. Very, very alarming, you may want to call it. And of course, it was titled Headline Inflation. Now, the surprising thing about it is that for the ninth time, that's for the past 9 months now, the inflation rate in the country has been on the steady increase. Little wonder what the authorities are doing. Now, another thing we need to know about the inflation is that the NBS had to do it state by state. Now, if we have inflation as it relates to food, say in Edo State, somewhere in Sokoto State, the inflation has to do with other aspects, maybe in transportation, in housing, or in healthcare, accessibility and all that. That's the way the NBS has released it. So what we're going to be doing here this morning, we're going to be looking at trying to do an history on survival opportunities in the country, because whether we like it or not, we must survive. So what are those alternatives? What are those opportunities that we can adopt in surviving this inflation situation? In as much as we know that the federal government is also putting modalities in place to ensure that Nigerians survive, we understand that a total of about 15 million Nigerian households are going to benefit from some form of cash transfer that the federal government has put together so as to ameliorate the inflation in the country. Well, to do all this this morning, we are so privileged to have a retired banker, Dr. Pascal Esele. He's a retired banker. He's right here live with us on set. Sir, you're welcome to this program this morning on our TV. All right. Okay. And also, too, we have Mr. Henry Eriamokhale, who is an entrepreneur, who is also going to be joining us via the WhatsApp call. Mr. Henry, if you are listening, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Okay. All right.
Good morning, viewers.
Okay, let me come to... Yeah, I'll just start with Dr. Pascal Esele. Now, the inflation rate is very, very alarming, 26.72% for an uprise of 9 times has been increasing for the past 9 months. How does that hit you?
Well, it's a very sad development in our dear country. It was least expected that, given the new government that is on ground, that we will have this upsurge in inflation in the country. But the basic fundamentals are yet to be done, even by previous administration, and even the new administration is yet to even come to terms with the realities on ground. The whole fabric of our economy are all are just not revving right in the direction that will assist in curbing the upward trend of the inflation. If you take ordinary conveyance of goods and services, you discover that you do not even have the infrastructure, the road infrastructure, to convey even your internal food packages that have been produced within us here. And what drives inflation is your lack of capacity. That is the major albatross that creates difficulties for the economy. I think really and truly the government of the day needs to up its game in ensuring that the road infrastructure in the first instance is put right, such that those who are in agriculture, those who have other engagement that requires conveyance of goods and services have it a little seamlessly. And you look at our mainstay, which is the oil. We are not getting it right at all. You have oil that is supposed to be drilled and refined and sold to us in Nigeria here for consumption. No, we are not doing it. Rather, we exchange crude to outside country and then buy back refined crude. How do you get inflation right in that concept? Because you are going to be looking for the high foreign exchange to be able to buy back the crude you have supplied to other nations. I think the beginning point would be that the Nigerian government comes to terms with realities by putting structures in place that would ensure that this mainstay, the oil that we have in this country, a blessing to this nation, is internally refined, so that as you are selling, whether the refined or the crude, you are earning foreign exchange, you are earning dollars, which is scarce in the country today. And they also identify that the behavior of our political class is not helping matters. You see politicians now wanting to have money in dollars. The few dollars that we have in the economy, rather than be used or deployed into productive sectors and ventures, you see people buying the dollars for home keep, in case of increase in FX rate. And all of that, we are just not disciplined to what is happening in Nigeria. Okay. I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, Mr. Henry Eriamokale, now you are an entrepreneur. Perhaps you have an alternate perspective into the situation. But let us look at some of the things, some of the moves that the federal government is making now. Because we're talking about poverty, there's no doubt about that. When we talk about inflation, it's poverty, amongst the citizenry. Now, there is a launch about a few days ago by the federal government that has to do with conditional cash transfer to give about 15 million Nigerians to benefit from that, innovation. Now, is this the right move in the right direction in the face of this inflationary trend in the country today?
Okay, good morning viewers and good morning listeners. I must first of all admit that this conditional cash transfer is not the best way to go. I already believe that it is better to teach me how to fish than to continue to fish for me. This conditional cash transfer, how much are you transferring and what you are transferring? How much and for how far can it sustain the family? I believe that if this money is actually channeled on production, something that can bring back, something that can improve on the economy. Because when you talk about why are we actually experiencing inflation, the magnitude we're experiencing it, and I must say that even this 26.72% that is being reported, in my own view, I think that is underreported. It is underreported. You and I know the cost of living, how difficult it is for people to survive. I think when the issues of what is actually giving rise for inflation, when the cost of production is going beyond reach, when the cost of manufacturing is going beyond reach, when the cost of transportation of goods and services is going beyond reach, all this have a way of translating to the cost of living. So if these issues are addressed by government rather than addressing conditional cash transfer, I don't think conditional cash transfer will actually solve the problems of inflation. That is just my own view. Because when you give people cash, it's like you are fishing for them. But I believe that I'm of the opinion that it is better that you teach people how to fish than to fish for them. That is my view. So the conditional cash transfer is not the way to go at all to get out of this quagmire that we find ourselves. That is my opinion.
Okay. Dr. Pascal, now a while ago you talked about, you were trying to look at trying to fix, infrastructure as it relates to roads and all that, and also maybe trying to revamp the refineries that are so dilapidated now. Now, let us look at it now. Perhaps the federal government is in a fuse, on how to really commence revamping the refineries. About some few months ago, we saw the establishment of the Dangote refinery, and a lot of persons thought that that would bring succor to the country. But even as we speak now, from the realities of ground, that refinery may not even be in operation for the next 1 or 2 years. So in the light of all this now, what do you think the federal government should be thinking of right now? Because, I mean, these statistics that MBS just gave is for September. The one for October has not been released. Nigerians are going through some hardship here.
Well, I want to first agree with my co-panelists that the conditional cash transfer is just a hoax. There is no way that can ameliorate the sufferings of Nigerians. It's just a way to siphon money to their private pockets. First, how did you come about the statistics you are using in doling out the funds you want to transfer? It's just, I don't know. I'm sure people are being bottled up. One day it will explode in this country. Let's take the response of the Edo State government to poverty alleviation, for instance. The governor, in his wisdom, have brought in free transportation. We can see very clearly and directly that is impacting on the lives of the citizen. Someone who would have paid 100 naira to go from one place to the other is not able to pay. That is impacting positively on those people. Those are the physical things we expect government to do. Now, back to your question on how do we revamp the refineries and all of that. You remember the amount that was approved for the revamping of the NNPC refineries, either in Warri or Port Harcourt, in those days, was far more than what it will cost to build a new refinery in place. That is the level of corruption we are seeing in this country. Now, I know Edo State government permitted or allowed a modular refinery that have started in Benin before, I think, around Ologbo. That is already bringing out oil. Why can't government...
Is that operational?
It's operational. It's operational. Because I know, as a banker, I went marketing. When I heard the commenced operation, I saw trailer loads, on their walkway, ready to lift oil. So if government really wants to see what they can do to internalize the drilling of oil in the country, they should go by that modular refinery stuff. And I know it's available in some parts of the country. So replicate it as many as possible. If you can't build the giant refinery like the old NNPC and the Cardinal refinery, you can do modular refinery.
Yeah, the reason
grant
why I'm
licenses to Nigerians
states,
to do this.
The refinery you talked about now, whether it's operational. Now, little wonder, the effect is not felt. I mean,
it can't be felt now because of the consumption level. Everybody is consuming. I went buying diesel and petrol yesterday. I spent 40,000 to buy 20,000 liters of petrol, 20 because petrol is high, 1,050 naira per liter. And if I run that on a 30 kVA, it won't give me 2 days of good use. So I always complement it with the petrol engine, 6.5 kVA, just to give light. And as I was paying close to 40,000 naira for those two, I just knew that something is wrong with this country and something needs to be done urgently. The population, the indigenes, the citizenry, they are having it not easy. It's really biting hard. Don't forget I'm a pensioner.
Yeah.
So, and I'm hard hit. When I was earning good money in the bank, good salary in the bank, I probably won't worry over spending 40,000, 50,000 naira to buy fuel.
But your gratuity is going to be paid soon.
We don't have gratuity. I came from a private sector, and then so we don't have those kind of thing. But what is there is that at least somehow the government need to approach, because that's what can easily take us out of this inflation. If Dangote, okay, what was the use commissioning Dangote when it was really not ready to commence operation? Just to, I don't know whether to say it was commissioned in my time, that was what the past president wanted to achieve, or his agents wanted to achieve. I really don't know. Okay. If this thing is not ready, it is not ready. Okay. And once it's ready, we should be able to push it.
Okay. Now, we have a graph just to illustrate this discussion, further this morning. There's a graph that we're going to be showing you where you can actually see the upward movements of the inflation trajectory from left to right. So there's a graph now, so the PD can let us see that now. You can see the almost, I don't want to use the word astronomical, but you can see the increase, how it's moving from left to right. That has to do with for the past previous months, and the NBS states that is for the past 9 months. That is, for the past 9 months, it's been on the steady increase. And of course, the statistics we are talking about now, the 26.72% statistics we are talking about now is for September. So for October now, which we are expecting by next month, there's no doubt that the MBS rather, we release the one for October. And of course, you get to see that. So let's see the graph quickly. We have that graph there, how the inflationary trajectory has moved from left to right. We have that graph right there. Now, Mr. Henry, now let us go back to what Dr. Pascal was trying to say here. Trying to, state governments also trying to, okay, this is the graph now. You can see the movements from left to right. Headline inflation soars to 26.72% in September, and that's the latest released by NBS. That was released on Monday, a few days ago. So it's, back to our elementary economic class. So when the graph moves from left to right, it shows that there is a steady increase. But when it slopes downwards from right to left now, it shows that there's a steady decrease. But this time it's on the incline, on the increase, inflation on the increase in the country, 26.7% in the month of September. And experts, just as Dr. Pascal has also tried to say here, even Mr. Henry Eremokhale also said that that is under, rated now, under, given. That is not the actual position of inflation in the country as it stands now. All right, so Mr. Henry Eremokhale, now we understand that the state government should have a role in trying to ameliorate this inflationary trend in the country now. And kudos to what the Edo state government has put in place, trying to ameliorate the hardship as it relates to transportation of Edo citizens and all that. But some analysts have deferred. They have the opinion that instead of transporting citizens from locations to locations, why don't you take those buses to the suburbs, take them to farmlands, to the hinterlands, and transport food items to city centers? Because just like what I said at the explanation, that the inflation we're talking about now, the way it is in Edo State, inflation is hitting hard in food items in Edo State, whereas way back somewhere in Sokoto is not the same thing. Because perhaps, in my own way of looking at it now, I'm sure that food items are closer to Sokoto people compared to the way they are closer to Edo people. So don't you think Edo State government should have thought of maybe helping to transport food items from villages, from nook and crannies to the city centers where they can be cheaply bought?
That is if the food items are available. That's it. Hello?
Yeah, I'm with you. We're with you.
Yeah, that is if the food items are available in the first place. If you have the food items to convey in the first place. Before I go in there, I want to quickly make a remark on the chart that you just showed. If you look at it critically, you will discover that there is no decline on that chart.
Sure.
You see there's a steady rise on that chart. It therefore means that there's not going to be an immediate end to the rising of the inflation. And like I said in my opening remark, the inflation can only come down if some critical area of the economic sector are addressed. And what are those areas? The areas is when you address production, manufacturing, distribution, and power. When these areas are addressed, I can assure you that the cost of living will come down. My co-panelist was talking about spending 40,000 to buy diesel and petrol to power his industry for maybe a day or two, depending on the size of his establishment. But I can assure you, I can tell you for free, that same day that this man, the business that he's going to use that 40,000 for, may not be able to recoup it, and he may not be able to directly transfer it to the customer or the client. Because if he wants to do that, then his goods and services will be beyond the reach of the ordinary man. That is that. Then on the refinery that he talked about, you discover that Nigerians deliberately do not want these refineries to work because of the vested interests that they have for these refineries. There's so much corruption in the oil industry. You and I know that. There's so much corruption, and it is the corruption that is not allowing government decision on revamping these refineries to work, until and unless that we take drastic measure to ensure this thing work, things will not work. Then on the state government or the transportation, the question I always ask, how many of us are in the city center that are actually benefiting from this free bus ride? I can tell you for free that this bus ride is not extended to people like those in Wuhimi, those in Ewato, those in Ugboha. Are they not Nigerians? Are they not Dolites?
Yeah, but Mr.
So when we are talking about palliative, yes, this palliative is not restricted and shouldn't be restricted to those of us that are in the city center.
Yeah,
but
Mr.
the way
Henry.
it is now is like palliative is restricted to those of us in the city centers.
Yeah,
to
Mr.
the
Henry.
exclusion of those that are in the suburb.
Yeah, Mr. Henry, just to cut in, I beg your pardon for that now, so that we don't misinform the public this morning. Now, those the free buses we are talking about now, they are not only within the Benin, they are not only with the Benin city now. We have others going outside Benin. There are buses going to Evohimi, going to Ekpoma, going to Igwebe, going to as far as Somorika, Akokwedo, and all that. I think you may have to find out so that we don't misinform the public.
About those in the suburb, those in the villages. My father in the village, my mother in the village, they'll have to leave a place like Afuda in one hamlet to Urumi. I can tell for free that those buses are not there. You can have the buses maybe from Benin to Urumi, Benin to Ekpoma. But what about those living in the villages that are attached to, linked to those local government headquarters? The buses are not there. Those are where you have the agrarians. The farmers are actually living in those areas. How do they get their goods and services to the city centers? If the buses are not equally provided, what I'm saying in essence is this, that these free buses should not be restricted to those of us that are in the city center or the local government centers. But what about those that are living in the villages that need to convey their goods and services to the local government headquarters, where these goods can be bought by those who actually have need for them? Until that is done, then which people cannot feel the impact of this palliative that is being given. That is the point I am making here.
All right, thank you. Back to the set here now, back to the studio here. We'll still have Dr. Pascal Isele. Now, let's take our minds off, food now, because it is not only food. We are really restricting it to Edo State now. Now, you observe that there is also a steady rise in inflationary trend as relates to housing in Benin City. I mean, this is October. I do know that in another few months' time, landlords are going to increase their rents and all that, because they will tell you that building materials have gone high. So how, I mean, Boas, we heard when Boas Cement said a bag of cement should be 3,500 naira. But as we speak now, you don't even find the cement anywhere except the Dangote and all that. So in this direction, apart from food, housing and all that, how will the government come in? The federal government, the state governments, and even the local authorities?
Okay, we all travel to developed countries and we see what happens there. At times, those of us not in government find it difficult to appreciate or understand why is it that we cannot just replicate, copy, or transfer the technology used in those developed countries into our own country. Again, it all borders on what is in it for me, which is why we don't move, we don't progress in this country. Now, mass housing, if government wants to, provide it, could have been possible. Like I'm sorry, I may be giving examples with what the governor of the state is doing. He wants to build the housing project in Iriri area. These are the kind of initiative that ought to assist.
Yeah, we're talking about effective response that we ameliorate the situation now.
These are a journey of 1,000 miles. Starts with one step. If Edo State is to build 1,000 units of houses, I'm not saying they are building it, which I think they can easily do, then other states of the federation are also doing that. Before you know it, we will be cultured in such a manner that we will even prefer to live in apartments than living in your own self-contained building. In developed countries, you enter one door like that, you will think is just a one-room apartment. But when you enter, you see, oh, wow, this is big. You don't know. It's just apartment. And it's a massive building across the length and breadth of a street, provided by government. And people get there, they pay their rent, and they're home and dry. Why do I need to be in a self-contained environment where I have to pay all the bills and take charge of the maintenance of the environment when I can enter an apartment with my family and live peacefully without too much of expense? So it is with this transportation. I guess you will have 2 or 3 cars. Your wife carried one, children will have one. Do we really need it? Because there is no good transportation that you can both happily tell your son, go to New Benin Market and buy this for me. You will be afraid. That's why you take one of the cars and go to that New Benin and buy this, so that he will not interfere with anybody. Will only move on the same road gently and back. But meanwhile, we ordinarily should have a very refined transportation system that you walk out of your house, enter the bus, you go to wherever you want to go to, and you still enter. When you are through, you have a bus or a train that you enter, it takes you to. Why do you need to do it? It's long the developed countries have come to realities
with some of these things.
Yeah. And we are still just not taking the steps in that direction in this country.
Okay.
Again, it boils down to what is the need for me? And it's
now,
bad.
Mr. Henry, I'll come to you as we wrap up now, try to wrap up the discussion this morning. Now, you are a production expert, and I think I'll be happy for you now. The federal government has said that the ban on importation of certain items, raw materials, I may have to say, has been lifted. So that goes to show that for those of you in production, you may have these raw materials at your disposal. But we still have inflation in production, produced items in the country. Why is this so?
Okay, I will quickly tell you, the non-government is making efforts to address such issues. Cost of living goes up is a function of demand and supply. So what makes cost of goods and services will go up? If there is so much demand on the few available ones, then the cost will definitely go up. So few goods, you have so much demand for few goods and services. so many people going for the few that is available, then the price will definitely go up. But when you have something like a glut, then you have so much, then the price will definitely come down, and that will not bring down the price of goods and services. I think this decision government has taken is in the right direction, believing that there could be an enabling environment for this policy to work. And if it works, I think it will be for the benefit of all Nigerians. But when you're talking about the housing, just quickly add to what my brother said there. We are yet to see something about the high cost of accommodation than Nigeria or in Benin, because we are yet to see what is going to be on the continuous increase. If what the Minister for Transport, Minister of Works, says anything to go by, then you will discover that there's going to be, the cost of building is going to be on the increase, because now we are going to be using less of attracts, and we are not going to concentrate on concrete. It therefore means that there's going to be so much demand now on cement, so much demand on the granite, so much demand on stone base. It therefore means that the cost of these goods will definitely skyrocket, which will translate to increase in the cost of building houses, and by extension, the increase in accommodation. So if this is done, except we now have to equally, as we are talking about diversifying, going into using concrete for our roads, then we equally have to increase the production of cement, the production of all those accompanying the granite and whatever. If that is not done, there will be so much pressure on the demand for cement, which will not make the price to go up and to now become beyond the reach of the builders. So I think that is what I just have to say on that. And I believe that if this the window that is now being opened for raw materials to come in, and the producers, the manufacturers gaining free access to FX for them to bring in these goods, then the cost of living will definitely improve. And because the cost of goods and services will equally improve.
Okay.
That is just my take on that.
All right, so I think that's all time will permit us to take today. We want to say a very big thank you to Mr. Henry Eriamokhale, a production expert and entrepreneur, for finding time to come on the show today. Thank you, Mr. Henry.
You're welcome.
Okay, and also to Mr. Pascal Esele, thank you so much for also joining us on the program this morning. We just hope and pray that by the month of October, that's next month now, when NBS releases the inflation, rate, it won't be as high as what we have now.
We are praying. We are praying.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.